Welcome to this week's Dear Old State Update, brought to you by Penn State Sports Night. I'm Kaylee Tallman here alongside Justin Chevalella to bring you updates across Happy Valley. From the greatest show in college sports to the start of college basketball in the BJC and some exciting conference play entering Pagula Ice Arena, our beat reporters have a lot to catch you up on. Stay tuned.
Following a 20-13 loss to Ohio State 2 weekends ago, Penn State football was looking to rebound when it took the field against Washington this past Saturday. The Nittany Lions did just that, and probably a little bit more, as they cruised to a 35-6 win over the Huskies during their annual whiteout game. Jack Raczynski and Dylan Price were on the broadcast of the game for our partners over at Com Radio. They now join us here in the studio.
Thanks, Justin. On a whiteout night in Happy Valley, Penn State was lights out against the Washington Huskies, winning 35-6 and advancing to 8-1 on the season. Good evening, Dear Old State Update. My name is Jack Raczynski, alongside Dylan Price, bringing you up to speed on the latest in Penn State football. So, Dylan, coming after that heartbreaking loss, 8th in a row to Ohio State, Penn State 9 out of their last 10 games coming off their first loss, they've either lost the next game or at least failed to cover the spread. But Penn State dominated against the Huskies. How important was it for them to not only win, but have full control of the game?
Well, you mentioned that kind of rocky track record, to say the least, in previous games after a loss. They kind of had a built-in bounce back with the whiteout and the 110,000 plus that were raucous and in a sea of white on Saturday night. So obviously that part helped in its own right. But getting out to a quick start, I mean, they scored 28 points unanswered against the Huskies, a pretty solid Huskies team. Yeah, they're not what they were a year ago, but still a really consistent program on the uptick for the future years. They got out to a big start early and almost felt like Andy Koldenicki was trying to silence his doubters, having Tyler Warren run not one, but 2 touchdowns in, and pretty close to where they fell short against Ohio State. So it was really important to get out to a hot start, silence the crowd, or silence the doubters, I guess, of Penn State football after that tough loss, and kind of keep that momentum rolling into this next stretch coming up.
He talked about that running game. Tyler Warren, 2 rushing touchdowns. Bo Perbula had 1. But let's talk about this guy, Nick Singleton, and his partner in crime, Katron Allen. Penn State is 26-3 when those two combined for over 100 rush yards in the game. They did against Washington. What's your look and your outlook for this rushing attack?
Well, Washington had the second best passing defense in the FBS. Penn State's passing attack still able to put 220 on the board, but the rush defense was able to be exploited. Katron Allen, just short of 100 yards, really impressive performance from him. He kicked the doors down at the end, got into the end zone to just keep that streak rolling where he continues his impressive performances. That guy right there, Nick Singleton, got banged up a little bit. James Franklin saying it's not going to be a long-term thing, at least right now, but still was impressive again. We saw that flash on that kick return that was called back, the kick return that almost was to really punctuate that victory, but his spark's back. Hey, we even saw Corey Smith rifle off a big run. So feels like the RB room, specifically that duo, they're back on track, especially at a time Penn State needs them most.
We saw Katron Allen at 98 yards. Corey Smith, RB5 to start the season. The true freshman, a 78-yard run in the fourth quarter on just his second collegiate carry. But let's go to our final point, talking about the college football playoff. And Penn State was ranked number 6 in the first CFP rankings last Tuesday. This Sunday, they jumped up to number 4 in the AP top 25 after Georgia and Miami lost. But let's look towards the final 3 weeks of the regular season. What are you looking to see out of this Penn State team so that they maintain the position that they're in? Because currently, they're projected to host the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in Beaver Stadium in the first round of the playoffs.
Do you hear that? What's that coming down the track? Is it the spoiler makers?
Oh, boy.
Listen, the Boilermakers haven't exactly been what they once were this season. So Penn State's going to have a good opportunity in Ross-Ade Stadium to get another win on the resume. And then after that, you kind of look ahead a little bit. Minnesota's been pretty good this season. You're in Minnesota. It could be a tough task for them. PJ Fleck, they row the boats. They're a pretty good, well-coached
Flashbacks
team.
to 2019.
Listen, that could be a chance. But that's kind of the last big glaring hole on the resume where if you can get through these 2 road tests here and then get into Maryland, even though it might be a sparse crowd here in Happy Valley, it's still going to be a strong one for senior day. You've had Maryland's number for the past few seasons. Feel pretty confident that that could be a win. So it's really just take care of business. Don't get upset, and fans will be more than happy to be back in Beaver Stadium, more than likely one of the last weekends of December, potentially hosting a playoff game and see what the opponent could look like. I think Notre Dame would get a lot of old-time Penn State fans bought back in. Optimal game for them, but I feel like this place could be rocking one more time than just next Saturday against the Maryland Terrapins.
I mean, you talk about the whiteout night. Penn State's first full stadium whiteout was against Notre Dame back in 2007. So bring back some old memories. But the Nittany Lions are back in action on Saturday in West Lafayette against the aforementioned Purdue Boilermakers, sitting at 1-8 on the season. That game's at 3:30 p.m. And they're keeping to look to push towards a playoff spot. But next up, let's take a look at how the Lady Lions basketball squad is performing as their season gets underway.
This Sunday, Penn State women's basketball took on Duquesne in the third game of the season. The Lady Lions improved their all-time record against the Dukes from 17-1 to 18-1.
Despite Penn State starting off in the first quarter with a 10-point deficit, they were able to gain back the victory, securing the 92-83 win.
The win wasn't pretty. The Lady Lions had a high number of turnovers, although sophomore transfer from Drexel, Mariah Murray, helped Penn State turn the game around.
Continuing to share the ball, third straight game with 20-plus assists. Once again, we'll fix those turnovers as we go, but love the way that our team responded tonight. Can't say enough about Mariah Murray. Obviously, 6 for 10, hits that one, does a face plant. I mean, she was just really electric tonight. But
Mariah Murray totaled 26 points against Duquesne, closing that gap in the first quarter that started as a 10-point deficit and increased to an 18-point deficit as the Lady Lions entered the second quarter.
Coach Keats always stresses that I need to have confidence in my shot. I go into every practice, I step into every gym thinking I'm the best shooter. And, my teammates have that trust in me. And like I say every other day, it's not going to be me who's making all these threes. It's going to be other teammates. And I think they do a great job of finding the open person.
Next, Penn State will take on the Niagara Purple Eagles at the Bryce Jordan Center on November 14th in hopes of improving their season record to 4-0. For Penn State Sports Night, I'm Sophia Koch.
I'm now joined here with Sophia Koch, who has had a front row seat to the Lady Lions' 3-0 start to their season. Now, Sophia, the Lady Lions had a big task ahead of them as they are coming off their best season record in the last decade last season. And a number of their starting scorers left. They lost or graduated. They lost McKenna Marisa. They lost Allie Brigham. They lost their biggest scorer of them all, Ashley Owusu. How have they filled those shoes so far?
So you have Tamara Johnson. She came from Louisiana. She's a talented forward. She really dominated that game against Duquesne. She played a key role there. And then you have Gracie Merkel. She stands at 6 feet tall on the court. But it's not only her height that leads to her dominating in the games, it's also her skill as a player. And then you have Gabby Elliott. She transferred from Michigan State. She transferred from Clemson, and she just dominates and plays a key role on the court.
And you mentioned 3 great players there, but I don't think you can talk about the Lady Lions' start to their season and the success that they've had so far without talking about Mariah Murray, who originally transferred over to Penn State from Drexel. She's had 2 25-plus point performances so far this season after averaging just over 4 points a game last season, which just shows immense improvement. She said that she was told by head coach Carolyn Keeger coming into this season that she'd have a leadership role on this team, and she has really exhibited those leadership qualities through her action on the court. And you also mentioned the size of Gracie Merkel has been a huge improvement for the Lady Lions as well, taking over that spot from Allie Brigham, who was only 6'1". You got 6'6" Gracie there now. So big improvement on the sides from there as well. But I want to talk about the last game as well. Duquesne, they overcame an 18-point deficit over Duquesne that started as a 10-point deficit in the first quarter, and grew to an 18-point deficit. How'd they do it?
So basically, in the beginning, they were lacking in their defensive play, but they needed to press out on the ball, which was what they did later in the game. They began pressing out, putting that pressure, and then that's when they started turnovers. That's when they started the game change. And then the coach talked about it, played a key role. It was the rebounds. They started getting those rebounds. They started getting the ball, limiting Duquesne's second chance at scoring there. And then it was really scoring too. They began hitting those 3 points that pretty much closed that gap that you saw in that game.
And it's hard to talk about rebounding without talking about Gracie Merkel. Like we both said, the size, 6'6", that's so crucial down in the paint when it comes to those rebounds. So now moving on, you still got non-conference play for a while here, which are the Lady Lions' weaker opponents this season. The Big Ten Conference is pretty good at women's basketball. But we've got 2 games coming up this week for the Lady Lions, one against Monmouth, one against Niagara. What can we expect from those opponents? Which key players are going to stick out?
So you have Monmouth. They just got a new coach, which could be beneficial, could not be beneficial. They gained 6 new players, 5 of which were transfers, and they lost their first game of the season to Yale. It was a pretty bad game. And you saw their key player, Rodriguez. She scored 10 points. I think if they could cover her, then it could be a successful game there. And then moving on to Niagara, their key player, Parker, she has averages 18 points per game, about 8 rebounds. If they could lock her down, play some good defense like they did in the last games, get those rebounds, get those 3 points, then it could be a beneficial game for them.
And it'll be important to see if that strong defense that we saw from the Lady Lions in the second half of that Duke game transfers over to the rest of these games this week. I mean, a 5-0 start for the Lady Lions against non-conference opponents. What else can you ask for? You talk to Carolyn Keeger, the head coach, in the post-game media. You can just tell her confidence in this team, and I'm really excited to see how that continues over to conference play. There's a lot of basketball ahead for head coach Carolyn Keeger and the Lady Lions, including games on Thursday and Sunday this week. But for now, let's head over to Rec Hall, where beat reporter Ethan Ellis has the update on one of the best teams on Penn State's campus, volleyball.
It's been an up and down past couple of weeks for Penn State volleyball. The team started with a successful 2-game homestand against Michigan and Iowa. The Nittany Lions swept Michigan and won in 4 sets against Iowa. Penn State's powerhouse duo of Jess Merzick and Cameron Hanna led the offensive efforts in both games, combining for 51 kills that week. The blue and white carried this momentum into their game against Northwestern the next week. Jess Merzick had an outstanding game, scoring 21 kills. The defensive effort was also a force to be reckoned with. Taylor Trammell hit at .857, and Jillian Grimes tallied her 1,000th career dig. But after this 3-1 match win, Penn State faced one of its toughest tasks of the season, 7th-ranked Wisconsin. After dropping a close first set, Penn State was never able to recover. The Badgers took the match in a sweep as the Nittany Lions failed to score more than 13 points in either of the final 2 sets. Penn State hosts Illinois this Friday before a quick trip down south to take on Maryland. For Penn State Sports Night, I'm Ethan Ellis.
Well, Justin, I mean, I don't think that one loss to Wisconsin, one of the best volleyball programs in the country, is really going to change the trajectory of this season for the Nittany Lions. They've been so strong, and I really do expect that to continue.
Yeah, it's almost the same story every year. It's you hit a little road bump against a Wisconsin, against a Nebraska, who Penn State has coming up in a couple of weeks, but it never derails them fully off the track. I mean, even that Pitt loss earlier in the year, they were number 1 in the nation at the time. And then what did Penn State do to respond? They just went on an absolute tear. They went on this lengthy winning streak that was snapped against Wisconsin. But there is, a key difference in collegiate volleyball that you can see in the top maybe 7-8 teams. They're going to roll over the opponents, and that's what Penn State is doing. They came in at number 4 in the poll this week, and they're just going to continue to prove themselves as a number 4 team. They might hit another hitch against Nebraska, but at the same time, Nebraska has shown some weaknesses this year, so you never know what's going to happen. That's going to be an interesting match on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, right when the students return back to campus for the football game the next day. So it's going to be interesting, but like you said, I really don't see how this Penn State team, gets thrown off by this loss. It tends to happen every year. They did get a big one last year against this Wisconsin team, but at the end of the day, I think Penn State just finds their rhythm once again and remains one of the hottest teams, not only in the nation, but on this campus. And speaking on this campus, we now go to one of the colder teams on campus, not because of their record by any means, but because they play on ice. That's the Penn State men's hockey team and the Penn State women's hockey team. And now beat reporters Josh Bartosik and Cassie Vaselis are here with us in studio to go over the starts of the season for both sides.
Thanks, guys. Both Penn State men's and women's hockey were on a bye week this past weekend, with both teams looking to regroup and refresh for conference action this week. The men's team is currently ranked number 18 in the country as they prepare to take on Wisconsin, while the women's team is number 12 and takes on Lindenwood.
Cassie, let's start with that men's team. What has been going well for them so far early on?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the record, it's not fabulous, but there has been a lot of good things coming out of this. The first one is the penalty kill. They started out with a 28 game. They were perfect, or 28 penalty kills where they were perfect. Now, that doesn't always happen. Now, it did get snapped against Minnesota, but they still look really good. And when you look at the penalty kill, one of their big factors were Arseny Sergeyev. He is my next point. He has been so good for this team. He's a great addition. He has a save percentage of about 93%. So that's awesome for the team. You know, they love having him. The team has a lot of confidence with him. They said that he's a really fun guy to be around off the ice and on the ice. Now, next point for them is the faceoffs. They have been really, really good on the faceoffs, about 51%. And this has given a lot of the freshmen opportunity as well. You know, you have Keaton Peters and Charlie Serrato who have been really, really good on that faceoff dot. And when you look at the penalty kill, that's something that's so important, is winning that first faceoff. Yeah. And then my last point is looking at those underclassmen. They have connected really, really well. You have Aiden Fink with 9 points in 7 games, and you also have Reese Lombach. He has 6 points. So they've been connecting really well, and you have Peters and Serrato who have both scored for this team.
Yeah, I got a bit ahead of myself there, but you're absolutely right. I mean, the Penn State team, the 4-3 record for the men doesn't look great on paper, but those losses are to a top 5 team in Minnesota, and at the time, a top 10 team in Quinnipiac. And the addition of Sergeyev has been really great, and those freshmen have been great. For the women's team, they have been dominating in terms of offense, nearly doubling up their opponents in terms of goals. They have 43. Their opponents have 22. You look at someone like Maddie Christian, what she's done for this team. A junior, already a career year in terms of goals and points. She has 7 goals in 12 games. Has been a spark plug for this team. The penalty kill, very, very solid. They're holding opponents to 16.7% on the penalty kill, which is very solid. And a lot of that's in large part to goaltending. Both Katie Disa, who was really, really solid for Penn State down the stretch last year when Josie Botham went down with injury, and the Minnesota State transfer in Laura Barbaro have been lights out between the pipes. Neither one of them has let up more than 3 goals in a game this season. But with those positives, there come negatives. Sticking with the women's team, they can't stay out of the penalty box, but we'll start with the power play as well for them. That has been just as bad as their opponent's power play. It's also at 16.7%. You got to find a way to capitalize on your advantage, on your opportunities on the power play, and the Nittany Lions are struggling to stay out of the box. Just mentioned it. 109 penalty minutes. They took 31 penalty minutes against Syracuse this past weekend, and a large part of that is due to their captain, Tessa Janicki. She's someone that if you're Penn State, she leads the team, yes, in terms of on the stat sheet, in terms of goals and assists. She does that all the time. But she took a game misconduct and was kicked out of the game in one of the games against Syracuse. That can't happen. You have 29 of the Nittany Lions, 109 penalty minutes by yourself. That's over 25% of the penalty minutes for Penn State. And for someone that's supposed to be leading the team, you wear the C on your chest for a reason. You got to find a way to stay out of the box and lead your team on the ice and stay on the ice as long as possible.
Right. And looking to the men's team, Coach said that they have 3 main areas where they really need to focus to improve. Now, that stays between the coaches and the players, but when you're looking at them, just like the women's team, they're struggling on the power play. They only have 3 power play goals. They've had 21 opportunities to score on the power play, and they just haven't been able to. They had 5 power plays against Minnesota. Again, couldn't capitalize there. Now, you know, he talked about trying not to play too pretty. They look like they're just trying to make skilled passes where they just need to shoot the puck. And they need to get more bodies on net. Now, speaking of bodies, they need to keep bodies out of the penalty box because, yes, they are lucky enough to have a really good penalty kill, but having 84 penalty minutes is not ideal. You can't always count on that penalty kill to save you. So that's another area of struggle where they really need to improve on.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like these teams are almost mirroring each other in terms of a really, really solid penalty kill, really, really good in terms of defense and between the pipes, but the power play has got to get things going. But both teams will have a chance to build off of their positives and correct the negatives this weekend in front of the home fans at Pagula Ice Arena. While the hockey season continues to ramp up, men's basketball is just beginning. When we get back from the break, we're going to send it over to Justin and Amanda at the desk to break down the start of year 2 for Mike Rhodes.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night.
all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.
Live from the campus of Penn State University, this is PSN News.
Penn State Network News is a student-produced, bi-weekly live news show featuring all student talent.
From local and national news to sports, entertainment, weather, and live interviews, we have it all.
We also feature student-made packages from across campus.
Airing every Monday and Wednesday at 7 p.m.
We are PSN News.
Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Facebook at PSN News, on Instagram at Penn State Network News, and to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/PSN News.
Have a good night and stay safe, Penn State. Hey everyone, we are Red Carpet News, your main source of entertainment news at Penn State University.
Man, this festival is going to be popping.
I'm Alex Porzillo, you're here with Aiden Harold.
He's going to 23rd with Daddy Elon Warbucks, the actual space away from Kip.
So in sync, especially during Kendrick's part when they came out.
reporting on anything from music, movies, TV shows, fashion, to celebrity gossip. You don't want to miss out on any of the hot topics we discuss.
Find our segments on YouTube under the name Red Carpet News for your daily dose of entertainment.
We are Red Carpet News.
Welcome back to Dear Old State Update, brought to you by Penn State Sports Night. Year 2 of the Mike Rhodes era has seen the Nittany Lions go 2-0, posting 2 of the best performances in program history. Our beat reporter Amanda Vogt has been at both of these games, and Amanda, I know that most recent game you have a story to tell.
Absolutely, and everybody has been getting involved from the get-go. On Friday, Penn State improved to 2-0. While it has been non-conference
For the first time in program history,
it's been a great way to see all of the new guys, which we will discuss in further detail later. But for now, let's take a look at how the Nittany Lions performed against UMBC.
103-50. For the first time in program history, Penn State basketball put up 100 points in back-to-back games. On Friday, the Nittany Lions defeated the UMBC Retrievers 103-54.
Mike's done a fantastic job, putting the right pieces together around Ace Baldwin. They have great balance. They have shooting. They have driving. They have depth. Big kid's fantastic.
It was a quiet night for Ace Baldwin Jr., only hitting a couple shots from the field and a few free throws. However, it was Baldwin's ability to be a facilitator that got the Nittany Lions going as he led the team with 8 assists.
He only played 23 minutes, and his group out there when he was out there was plus 41. The dude cares about one thing and one thing only, his team winning. And it's a great lesson for all our young guys.
Yannick Coden-Niederhausen led with 18 points, but the ball was distributed across the roster. Rhodes said his team plays unselfishly, and he likes how his players are looking for their teammates when working around the rim.
The kind of freedom we have, everybody can attack, everybody can create in our offense.
In the second half, Penn State outscored UMBC 57-26. Javin Carter was the only player to reach double digits in the second half, scoring 12 points during the 10 minutes he played. But everyone got involved, and Nittany Lion dunks brought the crowd to its feet. Penn State will play St. Francis on Tuesday night to wrap up its season opening homestand. For Penn State Sports Night, I'm Amanda Vogt.
Well, Amanda, we heard in your package there some of the new names that are probably unfamiliar to some Penn State basketball fans, maybe just tuning in for, a couple games here or there, maybe just getting started. They missed the first 2 games because of the work week or something. There's some new names like Yannick Coden-Niederhausen, like Javin Carter, these guys making an instant impact. This is a Mike Rhodes team that last year, he kept a relatively similar and small group of players, but this year, he's been able to empty the bench outside of 2 guys that have been injured and haven't played yet. He has been able to use everyone, and that includes a walk-on. He's been able to get them off. What have you seen that's allowed Penn State to empty the benches and show off everyone?
Well, Mike Rhodes entered a team where a lot of people were leaving Happy Valley, but now all roads are coming back, and he brought in 4 transfers, which are already making a difference. Mention Yannick, we'll talk about him a little bit more in a second. But Freddie Dillon, the 5th, also receiving a ton of the minutes. And all of them bouncing off, but the freshmen coming off the bench. Mike Rhodes said from day one on his media day to open up this season for year 2 of coaching that he was going to throw him in the fire, and that he did. and that includes the York, PA native Joe Sedora, the walk-on. Not something you see often from
The
guys.
underdog story.
Yeah, not something you see often in Big Ten basketball, let alone coming to a school like Penn State. And they said they want to create a culture of winning. It's not something prolonged success that Penn State has. But a lot of these guys, they want to bring in shooters, and that's what they've done.
They're winning and they're emptying their bench. You know it's a good sign when you can get all your guys in except the aforementioned two that were injured, including a walk-on in Joe Sedora. But now we move to two of the staples for this team, two of the starters for this squad. They're out there from opening tip and for the majority of the playing time. That's Ace Baldwin Jr., the reigning Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, and Yannick Koenen-Niederhauser, who we've already mentioned. Whether it be offensively or defensively, they are the catalyst of this Penn State 2-0 start.
Yeah, and Yannick is filling that big man void that Kuda Sahab left when he graduated last season, and he's done that with his 7 feet tall of height.
Wish I was that tall.
So do I. I talked to them, and I'm quite small. But he has been filling a void, and he has very different ways of getting to the basket. He could take it himself, but he's also rebounding is where he's really shined, cleaning up other people's baskets that hasn't necessarily gone in. And that's where he's dominated, averaging 17 points per game. But his blocks on defense, he's been shutting down opponents. Granted, it's non-conference teams. How are they going to do against Big Ten conference play teams? Don't have to worry about that quite yet. But he's been providing a huge spark and type of player that even when Kuda Sahab was here, didn't have that same energy, in my opinion. I think Yannick brings a good presence, and he says he's still just settling into this team with these guys, only 2 games in, but seems like sky's the limit for him and Ace Baldwin Jr., someone who opted to stay for a 6th year. He has nobody else has been talking about anything other than that guy's development. Mike Rhodes says he's taken a professional approach. That meant hitting the gym 3 times a day. I asked him on media day, why? He said, I'm tired of losing,
How does
point
he
blank.
have time for that?
I don't know. Seems busy enough with their practice schedule, but he's getting everybody else to follow his lead. Might have had a quiet day in game 2. It's not something Mike Rhodes is ever going to worry about because you have guys to clean up his shots when all of his aren't falling. But he's the leader that this team needs, and he's stepped up into this role. And you see that with him just even having high marks and assists through 2 games.
Ace Baldwin had a quiet day in game 2, and Penn State still managed over 100 points for their 2nd time on the season, 1st time in program history, like you had said. And now game 3, in where they'll look to score 100 points in back-to-back games for the first time in program history, comes against St. Francis tomorrow night at the Bryce Jordan Center. What needs to go right for Penn State to continue this run of high scoring, but also the defensive side to just continue to go 3-0 before they begin a little bit of tougher part of their schedule with ACC opponent Virginia Tech on their horizon on Friday?
Yeah, I think you have to keep the scoring up. Just see how many different rotations and what guys play well together in certain situations, and kind of using this time against an opponent to be the 13th matchup in program history. Played them last year, defeated them 83-53. But I think that this team, because of the guys they've brought in, they do have those shooters and they have the capability to score more points. Zach Hicks is building off a big end of the season that he had last year, kind of lulled at the start, but is picking up right where he left off. Had a great game to open week 1, keeps knocking down threes like there's no tomorrow. So if he keeps that up, leads should start to come quicker. This won't be an opponent that gives them any adversity. That'll come Friday when they go on the road for the first time this season. So just kind of getting more reps, getting those freshman experience off the bat will be so pivotal, because when the Big Ten opponents come to town, they're going to have to step up even when guys like Ace and Yannick are on their game.
Yeah, you mentioned going on the road on Friday. Penn State, their first road trip last year, didn't go as necessarily planned, and it started a little bit of a weaker trend for the team. They're hoping that's not the case. But again, first up is St. Francis tomorrow night. And Amanda, we'll have to see what happens in that game, but also the rest of the season. And you'll be there the whole way for Penn State Sports Night. And, whether it be this Penn State men's basketball team or any of the teams that we talked about here tonight, it's time to turn our attention to the top plays from Penn State athletics over the last 2 weeks, including a couple of plays from this basketball squad.
At number 5, it's Yannick Koenen-Niederhauser and Javin Carter combining for the steal in Penn State's first game, and then Carter off the backboard to Niederhauser, who slams it home for 2.
At number 4, Jess Merzick goes down for the dig that Taylor Trammell just barely tips over the net to get the kill for the Nittany Lions.
At number 3, Lady Lions basketball. Bucknell Bison drive to the rim, but Gracie Merkel rejects the Bison and sends the ball back to the floor.
At number 2, back in the BJC with men's basketball, Yannick Conan Niederhauser leaps up for a massive block for Penn State.
Our top play goes to women's hockey and Abby Stonehouse. Stonehouse picks up the loose puck in the corner, skates right into the crease, and then goes top down for the goal.
Well, those plays were fantastic, Kaylee. And these last 2 weeks of Penn State sports have been really busy. Action all over the place. And, well, it's not stopping anytime soon for Penn State, whether it be on the west side of campus, east side of campus, maybe even in the middle of campus at this point. There's going to be athletic events all over the place.
It's just a busy time of year with so many seasons overlapping for the Nittany Lions. First up in the BJC, we've got men's basketball against St. Francis on Tuesday, followed by women's basketball against Niagara on Thursday and Monmouth on Sunday. Inside Pagula, women's hockey will face Lindenwood on Friday and Saturday, and men's hockey will host Wisconsin later those evenings.
Get the Zambonis ready.
Round 1 of the NCAA tournament will take place at home for the women's soccer team on Saturday night. The Nittany Lions will face Stony Brook at home. And finally, the defending national champion wrestling team will open their season with a duel against Drexel in a rec hall on Sunday.
Look, it's a busy weekend. I could probably pick any of those events and enjoy them, but you got to think women's soccer looking for another NCAA tournament championship, squeaking in, playing Stony Brook, and then the next day you go and see the team that won the national championship, the only team national championship for Penn State last year, the wrestling squad. It's a great weekend. Football's on the road in Purdue, so maybe turn off the TVs and go somewhere on campus. Whatever the case is, Penn State Sports Night will likely be there. Make sure to stay tuned to the Penn State Sports Night YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok for updates on those games and everything we do here at Penn State Sports Night. That's going to do it for tonight's Dear Old State update. For Kaylee Tallman and the rest of the Penn State Sports Night crew, both on camera and behind the scenes, I'm Justin Chevalella. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great night.